If Elden Ring messed with your head in all the right ways, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That moment you step into Limgrave for the first time and realize the world doesn't care if you're ready or not. It just exists, massive, brutal, and beautiful, waiting for you to discover everything at your own pace. A game like that leaves a mark. The good news? You don't have to wait for Elden Ring 2, because right now there are new, incredibly well-made games out there that carry that exact same energy. Some are dark and punishing, others are packed with hidden lore, and a few genuinely surprised me with their quality. So if you're in that post-Elden Ring void looking for your next obsession, stick around, because this list was made for you. I'm Mary, and the video is starting right now. If you've spent hundreds of hours in Elden Ring trying to piece together every fragment of hidden lore from an item description or a wall inscription, then the Relic First Guardian was made for you. Developed by the South Korean indie studio Project Cloud Games, the game puts you in the shoes of the First Guardian in a world called Arsiltis, a once prosperous land that was consumed by a devastating void after the destruction of a great relic. Your mission is to gather the fragments of this relic to seal the void before everything is lost. Simple to describe, but too deep to ignore. Unlike an RPG that shoves cutscenes in your face all the time, here the story is told through objects, ruins, forgotten notes, and memory fragments scattered across the world. Every place you explore feels like an archaeological dig, where the details of what happened to Arsiltis are slowly revealed. It's exactly the kind of storytelling that makes Elden Ring so addictive. That feeling that the world existed before you arrived, and that it will keep existing with or without you. Now, about the progression system, forget traditional level-ups. The Relic First Guardian has no character leveling system. Instead, you grow through relics, which are fragments imbued with the emotions and desires of those who lived before you, featuring over 70 unique passive effects that completely change your combat style. Want an aggressive guardian focused on fast attacks? Pick the right relics for that. Prefer a more defensive style with parries and counters? There are relics for that too. This level of customization without relying on XP grinding is something few games dare to do, and it's one of the most interesting aspects of the game. The loot system also breaks everything you know about RPGs. Every weapon and piece of armor exists only once in the entire game world. There's no sword +1 or sword +2 or slightly better variations of the same item. The sword you find might have been the final blade of a knight who defended hundreds of lives. The shield you equip might carry the oath of an entire family. When you pick up an item, you are inheriting the history and weight of that object. It's a design decision that forces you to connect with your gear in a completely different way, and honestly, it sounds brilliant on paper. The Relic First Guardian is set to launch on May 26, 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and Steam, and is being described as one of the most promising action RPGs of the year, featuring Souls-like inspired combat, a semi-open world, 5 weapon types, and 12 skill trees. It draws inspiration from Korean folklore, including a dark reimagining of the tale The Heavenly Maiden and the Woodcutter, which gives the game's universe a unique cultural identity that breaks away from the usual European medieval tropes. If you're a fan of Elden Ring for the challenge, the fragmented story, and the sense of discovery, this game deserves to be on your radar right now. Eirene's Furnace of War is the first official expansion for AI Limit, arriving on March 27th, 2026 for PS5 and PC via Steam. And before you ask, yes, this first DLC is free. The developers confirmed this directly, which is incredibly rare in today's market and already makes me want to support this studio even more. The The story picks up exactly where the base game left off. Blader Orisa now enters the northern parish and reaches the Temple of War, a domain ruled by Eirene, the Bishop of War. Here, the tone of the world shifts significantly. It's a place of judgment, flames, and forgotten battles that are beginning to resurface. The narrative mentions ancient myths of Havenswell that had been dormant, and if you paid attention to the lore in the main game, this hook will leave you eager to explore every corner of this new area. What really got me excited was learning that the DLC goes beyond simply adding a new boss and calling it a day. In addition to a brand new mysterious boss, old bosses from the base game have been completely overhauled with new mechanics. This means that if you thought you knew their attack patterns by heart, you'll have to relearn everything from scratch. This is exactly the kind of challenge Souls-like fans love, the feeling that a familiar enemy has suddenly become unknown and dangerous all over again. In terms of content, the expansion brings new weapons, armor, spells, and exclusive seals that open up completely different builds from the ones you used in the main game. There will also be a new arena called the Furnace Arena, featuring layout elements that seem to have randomized components, almost like a roguelite dungeon within the AI Limit universe. To top it off, a consecutive boss battle mode has been confirmed, a boss rush for those who truly want to test their limits. And the best part? This is just the first DLC. It's already been confirmed that a second expansion is on the way, and this one will focus on new locations, new characters, and a completely original narrative. In other words, Sense Games is clearly not done with the world of AI Limit. With a base game boasting 92% positive reviews on Steam from over 32,000 players, this DLC arrives at a time when the game is at the peak of its reputation. If you've never played AI Limit, now is the best time to jump on the bandwagon. Imagine a game where you absorb your defeated enemies, steal their forms, and use them as weapons against the next ones that cross your path. That is the core concept of Grime II, the sequel to the acclaimed 2021 game Grime, developed by Cloverbyte and published by Quali. You play as a being called the Formless, an art mimic that exists to devour forms and summon them to its advantage. The game hits PC via Steam on March 31st, 2026, and anyone who enjoyed the first one will step into this world with that familiar mix of curiosity and anxiety to see what comes next. Before diving into what's changed, a bit of context. The first Grime was a Souls-like Metroidvania with an absurdly satisfying parry system and a world built around anatomy and organic horror. It had this feeling that everything was literally made of flesh and bone. Grime II maintains that weirdness, but completely shifts the central theme. Now, the focus is on art and artistic creation. The new world is built around civilizations obsessed with art, featuring environments made of giant painted nails and massive vases that form entire architectures. It is surreal, disturbing, and beautiful all at once. The progression system has grown massively. The developers confirmed that the game has 4 times more progression systems than the first one, and more than double the bosses. Directly inspired by games like Bloodstained, Aria of Sorrow, and Ender Lilies, each enemy now has a unique ability called a mold, which you can absorb to use as a special attack, projectile, stun, or even summon a copy of the enemy to fight for you. The system is almost like building a custom deck of abilities based on who you decided to devour along the way, making every run a completely different expression of how you want to play. Environmental combat is also a huge new feature. The world itself is a weapon, and each biome has elements that can be used to deal damage to nearby enemies. But be careful, because they can do the same to you. The developers confirmed they drew direct inspiration from Elden Ring's accessibility features to create a wider variety of combat styles, including extra areas designed to strengthen your character before major confrontations. So even if you aren't a parry master, the game gives you the tools to come up with your own solutions. Speaking of parrying, the parry and grasp system returns, now featuring tentacle-like hands that you shoot out to deflect enemy attacks or directly grab and absorb creatures. If you've never played the first Grime, there is already a demo available on Steam, and the original game sits at 86% positive reviews, with years' worth of players who simply couldn't put it down. Grime II is one of the most ambitious Souls-like Metroidvanias arriving this year, and if you're an Elden Ring fan because of its technical combat and a world that never stops surprising you, this is a title that deserves your full attention. If you finished Black Myth Wukong and were left with the feeling that the universe created by game science had so much more to explore, then you should know that Black Myth Zhong is not just a sequel, it is a deliberate expansion of that world. Officially revealed at Gamescom Opening Night Live in 2025, this second title in the series puts us in the role of Zhong Kui, the legendary ghost catcher of Chinese folklore, rather than the destined one from Journey to the West. What got me excited was seeing that they aren't simply reusing the same formula. The focus here shifts entirely from a mischievous hero to a spiritual judge, someone who walks between hell and earth, dealing with demons head-on. It's as if they took the same technical combat DNA from Wukong and redirected it toward an equally rich mythology, but with a darker and more ritualistic tone. The story itself is a deep dive into one of the most iconic figures in Chinese mythology. Zhong Kui wasn't just any god. According to legends, after being unjustly denied an imperial position due to his frightening appearance, he hung himself in front of the emperor's palace. His death, however, was not the end. The monarch began to have nightmares about ghosts trying to capture him, and it was Zhong Kui who appeared to exorcise them, leading to his posthumous appointment as the judge who wards off evil. In the game, this trajectory seems to be the core of the narrative. We aren't just fighting demons, we are understanding the weight of being the one who is feared precisely for protecting others. This layer of moral judgment and redemption is what hooks me, going far beyond simply having more bosses to defeat. Regarding gameplay, even without many extensive demos yet, everything points to game science maintaining the high technical standard that made Wukong a phenomenon. The engine trailer, revealed in February 2026, showcased fluid movements, impressive particle effects, and that sense of weight behind attacks that makes every strike feel consequential. Zhong Kui is expected to bring a distinct combat style compared to Wukong, less reliant on playful transformations and more grounded in traditional martial arts, combined with exorcism talismans, perhaps even the ability to summon the spirits he defeats to fight by his side, which makes perfect sense given his legend of enslaving demons. The use of Unreal Engine 5.8, seen in that 6-minute Chinese New Year demo, promises environments with a density of detail that only fuels the desire to explore every corner of this spiritual world. As for development and release, this is where that mix of hope and patience familiar to any Souls-like fan comes in. Game Science has a track record of announcing updates or releases around August 20th, and considering that Black Myth Wukong took about 4 years from its first gameplay demo to full release, many speculate that a window between 2028 and 2029 is realistic, especially if we see more footage in August 2027 indicating steady progress. What is concrete, however, is the commitment to multiple platforms. It has already been officially confirmed that the game will come to PS5 alongside PC and Xbox Series, following the same multi-platform model that helped Wukong reach so many players. This transparency regarding console support, even without a set date, is already a positive sign. And it is exactly this blend of cultural depth, technical challenge, and immersive atmosphere that makes Black Myth Zhong Kui a must-play for anyone who fell in love with Elden Ring. It's not just about the difficulty or precise combat, though those are there, but about how the game makes you feel like part of a grander myth. That moment you realize every defeated enemy has a story, every explored area has a purpose beyond just being another challenge. While Elden Ring Ring pulls you into a fragmented and enigmatic European fantasy, this one takes you on a Chinese spiritual journey where every talisman, every combat stance, and every area seems to breathe with centuries of belief and art. If you enjoyed the thrill of uncovering lore through item descriptions and careful placement in the world of Lothric, you'll feel at home finding Zhong's roots in the dark corners of temples and the whispered legends of NPCs. This isn't just another action RPG, it's a continuation of that search for games that respect your intelligence while challenging you reflex by reflex. Endalor is an open-world RPG developed by Diorite Games, launching in early access on Steam in the first quarter of 2026. The title blends Souls-like elements with survival mechanics set against a dark medieval fantasy backdrop. The game is available for solo play or co-op for up to 3 players. Endalor's world features dead forests, ruined castles, and perilous caves, with an atmosphere influenced by titles like Elden Ring and Valheim. The developers state they were inspired by the sense of place and environmental storytelling found in From Software games, where ruins and enemies have historical context within the game's universe. The visuals aim to convey a feeling of decay and constant danger. The combat system is based on stamina management, with an emphasis on precise dodges, blocking, and counterattacks, following the model established by Souls-like games. Enemies are designed to punish mistakes in timing and positioning, while bosses follow attack patterns and require players to learn specific mechanics to be defeated. Diorite Games confirms boss encounters in the typical Souls-like style. Beyond combat, the game incorporates survival loops similar to those in Valheim, allowing players to gather resources, build shelters, craft weapons and armor, and develop a base of operations. Progression involves alternating between preparation phases, gathering and building, and exploring dangerous areas containing dungeons and boss fights. The resources gathered directly affect your ability to survive and face greater challenges. Early access is already available on Steam, with support for single-player and online co-op modes. Spark in the Dark is an isometric dungeon crawler developed by Stellar Fish, scheduled for release on April 7th, 2026 on Steam for Windows and Mac OS. The game takes place in a dark, medieval fantasy setting where you explore the depths of a mysterious and seemingly endless dungeon. It is already available to wishlist on its Steam page, and a demo version is currently available. The game's atmosphere emphasizes the contrast between light and darkness as a core survival mechanic. As you descend through the dungeon's procedurally generated levels, the darkness itself becomes an active enemy. Staying too long in unlit areas causes progressive damage to your character, depending on your will attribute. This system creates constant pressure, forcing you to manage resources like torches and lanterns while navigating traps and engaging in tactical combat. Combat is deliberate and positional, with 5 hero classes available from the start, each with unique abilities and distinct playstyles. You can choose from builds focused on melee combat, characters specialized in traps and poisons, like the hunter with his crossbow, or rogues who prefer dual daggers and lockpicking. Class skills level up through use, and there are systems of blessings, curses, and injuries that persistently affect your character during each run. The dungeon itself is procedurally generated upon each entry, meaning the layout of enemies, traps, loot, and even some level elements constantly change. This also applies to the gear you find. Its stats and types are randomized, preventing you from simply memorizing the locations of powerful items. There are over 100 books and rings scattered throughout the dungeon that slowly reveal its intricate lore, alongside journals and points of interest that tell you who inhabited those depths before you. In addition to the main exploration loop, the game includes detailed equipment management systems. Weapons and armor degrade with use, requiring constant repair or replacement. Resting in beds provide temporary buffs of joy and removes accumulated debuffs, but resting outside of safe rooms can trigger nightmares or attract monsters. There are also class-specific mechanics, such as the hunter's ability to craft and disarm traps, or the rogue's skill to extract poison glands from dead monsters to use in flasks. The game supports permadeath as an option, adding even more weight to every decision made in the dark. Annulus is a turn-based tactical RPG developed by Nirvana, with a global release scheduled for April 8, 2026 on Steam. The setting of Annulus is the continent of Novaseth, described as a land scarred by constant war between rival factions. The art direction combines elements of dark medieval fantasy with Lovecraftian influences, as mentioned in promotional materials and pre-release reviews. The world is presented as an open theater of conflict where factions vie for territorial control. The gameplay centers on turn-based tactical battles on grid-divided maps. Players control individual mercenary units, positioning them strategically to take advantage of cover, traps, and terrain bonuses. Each unit has a defined class with specific abilities, and success in encounters depends on movement planning and the synergy between the deployed unit types. Progression in Annulus involves recruiting new mercenaries, evolving units through distinct development paths, crafting weapons and gear, and applying inscriptions that alter stats. Units of the same base class can follow different evolutionary paths based on player choices, resulting in varied battlefield roles, such as tank, damage, or support. Compared to games like Elden Ring, Annulus shares the dark fantasy atmosphere and the sense of a world in conflict, but fundamentally differs in genre, being a tactical RPG rather than a real-time action RPG. The title does not include real-time dodging, blocking, or countering mechanics, focusing exclusively on strategic decision-making during the turn phases. It seems aimed at those who enjoy heavy fantasy, medieval warfare, factions, narrative choices, and battles where thinking a few moves ahead matters more than pure reflexes. If you like that style, it might be worth taking a look. Stonemachia is an indie Souls-like from Crossfall Games, launching on May 26, 2026, putting you in the role of Zephyro, a simple chess pawn capable of transforming into other pieces on the board, each with unique combat abilities. The premise hooked me immediately. Who wouldn't want to evolve from a fragile pawn into an unstoppable rook, or even a powerful king over the course of the journey? It's a mechanic that brings a fresh layer of strategy to the genre, making every encounter feel like a tactical puzzle, where choosing the right form can be the difference between life and death. The heart of Stonemachia lies in its combat system, focused on defense and counterattacks, where your shield isn't just an accessory, but the true key to survival. Much like in Elden Ring, perfect timing to parry a strike can create a devastating opening, but here it's even more central. Each chest transformation alters how your shield and weapon behave, encouraging you to experiment and adapt your style on the fly. I was particularly impressed seeing in the trailers how facing twisted angelic statues requires not just strength, but patience and pattern reading. That pure satisfaction of finally mastering an attack pattern after multiple attempts that every Souls-like fan knows all too well. It's challenging, yes, but in a fair way, where every defeat teaches you something new about the mechanics or the enemy's pattern. Medhellen's world is where Stonemachia truly shines with its unique identity, diving deep into Italian art, architecture, and folklore to create something that feels simultaneously familiar and entirely new. Exploring abandoned Gothic cities and terrifying landscapes inspired by Milanese legends isn't just a backdrop, it's an integral part of the experience, with every corner revealing details that tell the story of the Plague of Angels, without relying heavily on long texts. As someone who loves discovering environmental lore, the kind you find by looking at a weird statue or reading a shallow inscription on a wall, I was fascinated by how the game uses its aesthetic to tell a Dantesque story about redemption and the fall, making simple exploration feel rewarding in itself. Of course, no Souls-like would be complete without memorable bosses, and Stonemachia promises epic showdowns against gigantic angelic beings made of stone and fire, each requiring you to master your specific transformations and attack patterns to survive. Gameplay videos showcase battles where the arena seems to become part of the challenge, pillars you can use to hide behind, moving platforms, and bosses that change phases in ways that force you to reevaluate your strategy in real time. That is the kind of challenge that makes you break out in a cold sweat, but also the kind that, upon winning, leaves a smile of satisfaction on your face, because you know it was your skill and learning that brought victory, not luck or abusive level grinding. Developed by the Perry Frames team, Crimson Oath is an indie Souls-like arriving on PC via Steam and Epic Games on April 30th, 2026, with an extremely affordable launch price of $11.99, which immediately caught my eye because indie projects with this level of ambition usually cost much more. The game places you in the role of a nameless red hero on the continent of Goretvo, a millennia-old land where the Golden Dragon family ruled everything until corruption took over, religious sects spiraled into civil war, and gods from different realms began directly interfering with the fates of mortals. It is exactly the kind of dense, intricate lore that makes you want to explore every corner of the map to understand what really happened there. What genuinely impressed me when playing the demo was discovering that Crimson Oath has no stamina bar. Yes, you read that right. Instead of the classic energy system that punishes you for attacking too much, the game works with 3 resources called Faith, Loyalty, and Energy, each governing different aspects of your fighting style. This completely changes the combat philosophy compared to Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Here, the pressure isn't on managing your fatigue, but on mastering your deflect timing and knowing exactly when to use your pistol parry, a specific counterattack for marked red attacks the enemies launch, which can only be answered with a precise gunshot at the right moment. Anyone who played Sekiro will feel instantly at home, but with a completely different flavor. The enemy health system is one of the most creative mechanics I've seen in a Souls-like recently. Every enemy has 2 health bars, a yellow one acting as a shield, and a red one representing actual health. You need to drain the yellow bar first before you can deal any significant damage to the enemy's life. And when you finally empty both bars, you must quickly execute the enemy. If you take too long, their health begins to regenerate. This element of pressure and urgency creates a tension that really reminded me of the feeling of facing Bloodborne's toughest enemies, where every second matters and dropping your guard after overcoming the challenge can cost you the victory. With over 80 different types of combat encounters and 12 boss battles spread across 6 main levels, the variety of situations the game throws at you is huge. Healing in Crimson Oath works in a way that will divide opinions. Forget the Estus Flask or Elden Ring's Flask of Crimson Tears. Here, you collect healing items from the enemies you kill, Bloodborne style, but with a strict cap of only 3 items in your inventory at any given time, and any excess is directly converted into souls. This creates a constant strategic dilemma. Do you step back to heal after a tough encounter, or do you wait to kill more enemies to stockpile resources? This kind of decision-making that keeps you on your toes at all times is exactly what separates a good Souls-like from a great one, as it forces the player to think proactively rather than simply reacting. Combined with the layered parry system that sometimes requires multiple quick succession deflects just to stun a single enemy, the learning curve is steep but entirely rewarding. Crimson Oath is one of the rare cases where an indie game manages to take the best parts of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, mix them all up with its own ideas, and create something that doesn't feel like a cheap copy, but rather a sincere celebration of the genre with its own personality. The story of William, the rebel who crossed seas to learn new powers and died mysteriously before leading his revolution, sparking a series of betrayals and internal wars that you'll have to navigate, has exactly the kind of political and epic complexity that makes Elden Ring fans spend hours reading item descriptions. With a free demo available right now on Steam and the full launch less than 2 months away, there's no excuse not to try it.
Look, I know that when someone says the creators of Pokémon made a game for Elden Ring fans, it sounds like a joke. But bear with me, because Beast of Reincarnation might be exactly the surprise no one saw coming in 2026. Developed by Game Freak, yes, the exact same company behind the entire Pokémon franchise, and published by Fictions, the game was previously known by the codename Project Bloom. It was officially revealed at the January 2026 Xbox Direct, with a confirmed release date of August 3rd for PS5, Xbox Series, PC via Steam, and available day one on Xbox Game Pass. What caught my attention immediately wasn't just the fact that Game Freak is doing something completely different, but the visuals of this post-apocalyptic Japan in the year 4026, devastated by a mysterious corruption that has overtaken forests, altered entire landscapes, and spawned absurdly powerful creatures across the globe. It's the kind of setting that hooks you before you even press a single button. The protagonist, Emma, is a young woman with the unique ability to manipulate plants, and she isn't alone on this impossible journey. By her side is Ku, a canine creature that should have been her enemy, but ended up becoming her most important survival partner. What really sets Beast of Reincarnation apart from anything you've ever played is how combat works with this duo. Emma fights with her sword, while you issue commands to Ku as if you were in a turn-based RPG, creating a synergy that shifts entirely depending on how you build both characters. It's almost like having a combat Pokémon by your side, but in a visceral and dark context where every battle carries real weight, and every order you give Ku could mean the difference between winning or being devoured by a corrupted boss. Now, I have to be honest with you. Game Freak made it clear that Beast of Reincarnation is not a traditional Souls-like. Director Furushima explained that the game was designed to be accessible and features adjustable difficulty settings, something Elden Ring would never offer. But the Souls-like DNA is deeply rooted in its combat. The Sekiro-style parry system, the mechanic of breaking enemy posture to deliver a devastating execution strike, and the tempo system that allows you to slow down time to coordinate attacks with Ku in critical moments. All of this will sound very familiar to anyone who spent hours mastering the perfect timing in the lands between. So think of it this way. If Elden Ring is a Souls-like for those who love to suffer, Beast of Reincarnation is a Souls-like for those who want to achieve mechanical mastery, but want the option to adjust the difficulty without being judged for it. The game's progression is where Game Freak cleverly left their signature mark. Instead of an open world like Elden Ring, Beast of Reincarnation uses a semi-linear structure divided into districts. The director himself compared it to a long road to Kyoto with distinct stops, each featuring an entirely different environment from the last. You customize Emma and Ku through passive skill trees, varied equipment, and special spirit stones that alter your combat style, allowing you to choose whether to be aggressive and direct, stealthy and strategic, or rely on ranged attacks. And with every boss you defeat, you absorb their powers, creating a sense of constant evolution that feels very reminiscent of acquiring the spells and techniques of the most powerful enemies in Elden Ring. The lack of an online mode was a deliberate decision by the team to keep the focus entirely on the relationship between Emma and Ku, and honestly, it seems like one of the bravest and smartest design choices in the game. Beast of Reincarnation is the kind of game that comes around once a generation, because it defies all your expectations about who can make a certain type of game. No one in their right mind would expect Game Freak to deliver a technical, dark, and emotionally heavy action RPG set in an apocalyptic Japan, but here we are. If you loved the feeling in Elden Ring of exploring a beautiful yet absolutely hostile world, of building a connection with the story through the environment rather than long cutscenes, and of mastering a combat system that rewards skill and patience, this game will speak directly to you in a way few 2026 titles will manage. With its launch in August and availability on Game Pass Day 1, there's no reason not to give Emma and Ku a chance. And who knows, maybe you'll finish this game with a fondness for Game Freak that you never imagined having after years of disappointing Pokemon games.